Belk Department Stores was founded by William Henry Belk in 1888. The first store opened in the Charlotte area of North Carolina and was originally called New York Racket, until being renamed Belk Brothers after physician brother John Belk became William's partner. The second and third stores opened in 1893 and 94, respectively. In 1909, the company built their flagship store on the corner of Trade and Tyrone Street in downtown Charlotte. It also served as their headquarters, which would remain the company's headquarters until it was closed in 1988 to make way for the construction of what is now Bank of America Corporate Center. Beginning in 1921 with the Leggett Brothers stores of South Boston, Virginia, the Belk Company grew by investing in various partnerships with local merchandisers in nearby markets, following a sort of similar method to Macy's. Belk's growth out of the Southeast was pushed by Earl Jones Sr. and the Belk Jones brand that opened the first Belk west of the Mississippi in 1947. The Jones family and the Belk Jones brand continued to grow Belk's westward expansion. William Henry Belk passed away in 1952. His heirs established the Belk Foundation with the charitable portion of his estate. Belk's history of expansion is kind of wild. The partnership structure allowed Belk to expand quickly and permitted local variation, but this resulted in a diluted brand identity since most stores were co-branded. By the 1990s, the system had become increasingly untenable. Stores were held by over 350 separate legal entities. Belk family members disagreed about whether to maintain or do away with the structure, and some local partners threatened stability by selling off their stakes. As an example, the heirs of John G. Parks, majority owners of the Parks Belk chain, sold their interests to Profits, a competitor. The Belks quickly sold their stake as well, although Belk would later purchase the stores back as part of its acquisition of the entire Profits chain from Saks in July 2005. Profits was now a defunct department store brand, also based in the Southeast, that operated 47 stores at the time they were acquired. The Belks continued the trend of consolidating store ownership throughout the middle and end of the 20th century. Under the direction of President and CEO Thomas Belk, the company succeeded in transforming its operations in order to meet the demands of style-conscious shoppers during the 1980s, as opposed to catering strictly to a clientele looking for thrift, durability, and value. Belk hosted its first fashion buying show in New York in 1983, and within 4 years, representatives from the nation's top fashion lines were competing for representation in the show. This further consolidated buying and proved Belk's place in the fashion retail market. Marking the change from bargain chain to fashion stores was top designer Oscar de la Renta's appearance at the grand reopening of a Belk store in 1986. Though some stores retained the small-town, bargain, or budget flavor of Belk's founder's vision, others moved to suburban malls and shopping centers. In 1997, sales for the company totaled $1.8 billion, and profits totaled $64.5 million. The 112 companies that made up the Belk stores were consolidated into one corporation, Belk Inc., on May 2, 1998. The initial filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission had 7,358 pages and was more than 3 feet in height. Wild. While Belk remained privately held, it began filing returns with the SEC in '98 due to the fact that it carried public debt. Slowly, Belk eliminated the dual brands, completing the process with a chain-wide Belk rebrand in the fall of 2010. By 2004, sales had reached $2.3 billion, with profits at a strong $111.5 million. During the fourth quarter of 2005, Belk completed the sale of its private label credit card division, Belk National Bank, to GE Money Bank, a division of GE Consumer Finance. Consumers were issued new Belk credit cards, replacing the old ones issued by BNB. All new Belk cards are now issued by GE Money Bank, also known as Synchrony Bank. On October 12, 2010, Belk introduced a new logo, giving a much-needed modernization to the one the company had been using since 1967. The chain embarked on a $70 million marketing campaign that replaced the old slogan, "All for You," with a new slogan, "Modern Southern Style." By 2014, the chain operated 293 stores in 16 states, generated $4 billion in sales, almost double over the past 10 years. The state of North Carolina leads in the number of Belk stores, with 65 locations, followed by Georgia and South Carolina, with 45 and 35 stores respectively. Its typical store covers 100,000 to about 180,000 square feet. As of 2014, half of its stores are in regional malls, another 40% are in open-air community or retail parks, and 10% are in those open-air lifestyle centers. On August 24, 2015, Belk announced that it had entered into a definitive merger agreement to be acquired by New York-based private equity firm Sycamore Partners. The acquisition was completed on December 10, 2015. On June 29, 2016, Belk announced that, effective as of July 5th, Lisa Harper, CEO of Hot Topic, which is another Sycamore Partners-owned company, would replace Tim Belk as CEO of Belk. This would be the first time since the founding of the company that a non-Belk family member would head up the company. In July 2020, it was announced that Sycamore Partners had made a $1.75 billion offer to acquire department store chain and competitor JCPenney out of bankruptcy. Under the terms of the plan, 250 JCPenney stores would have been rebranded as Belk in an effort to compete directly with Macy's, while the remaining JCPenney stores would have been liquidated. JCPenney was ultimately acquired by Brookfield Property Partners and Simon Property Group instead. On January 20th, 2021, it was announced that KKR and other major lenders were in talks with Belk to prevent the chain from declaring bankruptcy, having proposed a deal under which a portion of Belk's $2.6 billion in debt would be converted to equity and Sycamore would retain an ownership stake. However, just 6 days later, on January 26, 2021, it was announced that Belk would file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, continuing to operate normally through the bankruptcy process, which Sycamore expected to exit by the end of February 21. Sycamore would retain majority control of Belk, while private equity firms KKR and Blackstone would receive a minority stake in the company following its emergence from the bankruptcy. The plan would liquidate about $450 million of debt and raise $225 million in new capital, with no employee layoffs or store closures anticipated. On February 23, 2021, it was announced that Belk had indeed filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy in Houston, reducing its total debt to about $1.46 billion. On February 24th, 21, just one day after actually filing Chapter 11, the company announced that it had successfully completed its financial restructuring, finalizing an expedited pre-packaged one-day reorganization and emerging well-positioned for long-term growth. The bankruptcy extended maturities on all term loans until July 2025. The plan received nearly unanimous support from existing lenders, supply providers, and landlords to be paid in full as normal operations continue at all store locations. On July 6, 2021, Belk announced that Nir Patel had been promoted to CEO from his previous position of President and Chief Merchandising Officer. Patel replaces Lisa Harper, who has been the company's CEO since July 2016, but now serves as the executive chair of the Belk Board of Directors. It was not disclosed what prompted this leadership change. According to Belk's website, the brand operates 293 stores in 16 southern states, making it the first regional department store that I've talked about on the channel. I myself grew up in Wisconsin and had never heard of or seen a Belk store until I moved to Texas in 2016. I also want to point out, Belk has had the same 293 store locations since 2014. I find this interesting. While a lot of competitors have closed locations over the last 10 years, Macy's just announced the closure of 150 stores a few weeks ago, Belk has held strong. It's been difficult to find Belk financial info past 2015 when they were acquired. One source states revenue was $3.7 billion in 2023, while another says it was $3.1 billion. Private equity owners Sycamore Partners acquired women's fashion brand Chico's in early 2023. They also own Ann Taylor, Loft, and Talbot's, and have been sniffing around Macy's with news about their sagging sales. Have you been to Belk? What do you think of it? Do you prefer them over the bigger national brands like a Dillard's or a Macy's? If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more mall and retail content, and I'll see you on the next one.